Terraria's Post Plantera section is an interesting time to be a mage, as many of the best weapons available at this point are restricted to events and invasions, and while they are always the free dungeon exclusive staffs which are all great in their own way, unfortunately these don't quite cut it when it comes to single target performance. Today, we're going to be looking at one of my all-time favourite mage weapons that I think might deliver some of the best boss damage in the whole game. Of course, I'm talking about the Razorpine. Aside from being an excellent alternative to the dungeon route, the Razorpine isn't even really that hard to obtain, making it one of the most sought after mage weapons at this point in progression. Before we jump into it though, did you know that around 84% of you folks aren't actually subscribed? So if you enjoy these weapon reviews, why not let YouTube know, as it can really help out the channel. Alright then, let's take a look at this thing. As you'd expect, the Razorpine is a Frost Moon drop, which can be summoned after defeating Plantera quite easily. First, you'll want to gather 5 Souls of Fright from Skeletron, and then head to your dungeon for 5 Ectoplasm, which is quite easily obtained. Finally, you'll want to craft a bunch of cobwebs into 20 silk, and craft your naughty present summoning item at an anvil. Luckily for us, and is what I think makes the Razorpine so appealing, we don't need to progress too far into the Frostmoon event to have a chance of obtaining this thing, as it drops from the Everscream mini-boss. As these start spawning as early as Wave 4, using a fantastic crowd-controlling weapon like the Shadowbeam Staff is extremely effective at cleaning out these first few waves. Once you've killed a few Everscreams though, don't worry if you don't get it to drop, as the drop chance of the Razorpine scales between 6.22 and 31.11% depending on what wave you're on. So if you want to guarantee it dropping, I'd recommend getting at least around the wave 10 mark, which can be reached quickly with a simple arrangement of traps, and then just killing as many Everscreams as possible. Once your event's finished, the likelihood of having a Razorpine left over is very high. Okay, let's take a look at what it can do. As mentioned earlier, the Razorpine is one of my favourite mage weapons in the game, which for me was placed on this pedestal due to its high damaging simplicity. The Razorpine will rapidly fire 2 to 4 green pine needle projectiles at the curse's position, and that's it. While it may not be the most exciting or unique weapon to look at, it sticks to the basics, and by god, does it do a good job of it. With a base damage of 48, you can expect an average DPS that absolutely demolishes other competitors at this stage of the game, such as the Bat Scepter and of course the Shadowbeam Staff on single targets. However, with no piercing in sight, it's pretty obvious that this weapon was not designed for dealing with crowds, but that doesn't mean it's particularly terrible at it. Against a large group of mummies, its damage is just that high anyway, it can rip through them quickly. And while it may not be at the same level of a piercing weapon like the Shadowbeam Staff, its as aforementioned single target damage significantly makes up for it. So, we've established that it's a mediocre group weapon, but a god tier single target one. So what's it like against bosses? Let's just say, you can tell a weapon's good against Golem when you can actually manage to take out its main segment before its fists. Like seriously, the damage here is just nuts. And of course, if it's good against Golem, it's probably going to be good against the Cultist. And to be honest, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Yes, its damage is fantastic, but its range does suffer a bit here, causing the needles to spread and not deal much concentrated damage. It's completely fine though, and won't require you to grind something else if the Razorpine's all you've been using. At this point though, this is when I'd usually retire the Razorpine, as while it can kinda do some pillars, it just doesn't really have the functionality to keep up with other mage options at this point. Either way though, if you want, you can take out the Moonlord with this thing, but it might just take you a while longer than normal due to the same issues described during the Cultist fight. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Razorpine. Could it be another amazing Terraria weapon that just finds itself in an awkward place in progression? This has been sockrteez, and I'll see you in the next one.